Hello and welcome back to our latest episode of West Coast XC. I am your host, Ken Martinez. If you're watching on YouTube, if you could please click on the subscribe button, that would be fantastic. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, if you could follow us, that would be super helpful. In today's episode, we talk with Keenan Gray of DyeStat, and he will talk about the Washington all-time greats. We are doing this series of the three states of Oregon, Washington, and California, and who are the four athletes that are on what's called the Mt Rushmore. You know, we have a Mt Rushmore in South Dakota with the four presidents of the United States. And so who are the four people in the state of Washington? And of course, the mountain that is commonly known in Washington, it's on their license plate, is Mt Rainier. So what four athletes are on the Mt Rainier, girls and boys? So we asked Keenan to come on because Keenan is from Washington. He now works for DyeStat out in Eugene, Oregon, but he spent his life in the state of Washington. He went to school in Gonzaga and ran for high school in near the border of Canada, the northern part of Washington. You'll hear on the episode, you'll talk about his mom, who also was a runner in the Spokane area. So he's got deep roots in Washington and has a good knowledge of all the athletes that have been successful in Washington. So I think you'll enjoy that. If you're interested in an episode that we've already recorded that's out already, it's on the top four athletes in California. We call it the Mount Whitney of California, and that is available for you to view. We have Coach Albert Kawana, who's been on before, and he did a lot of research, just like Keenan will do in a second here with Washington, on the all-time greats of California, what athletes didn't quite make it to the Mount Whitney and what athletes are on there. So I would encourage you to go back and watch or listen to the California one if you're interested in California. But for now, let's talk about Washington, the great state of Washington, north of where I live here in Beaverton, Oregon. And we got a little rivalry between Oregon and Washington, and there's just been some great runners in the state of Washington. And you'll hear more about it from our friend Keenan. Here we go. Hey, we're happy to have Keenan Gray here. Hey, Keenan.
Hello, I'm back again.
We've had Keenan on many times. He is at DyeStat, and we have him on because we're going to go over the Mount Rushmore, aka the Mount Rainier, not the Mount Baker, but the Mount Rainier.
I'm okay with that. Rainier's the highest peak in Washington, so why not?
It's on your license plate. And he was in charge of Runner Wah, so has lots of Washington knowledge here. And this, we did an episode with California last week, and this actually just originated with an idea with you because you were talking about Owen Powell, which we'll go into probably later, about how he may be the greatest Washington runner. I thought, well, okay, that's kind of fun. What about the Mount Rushmore? Who are the four? So that's what we're going to do. But before we do that, Keenan, let me ask you, what's your criteria? Do you think about what they did in college or in the professional ranks, or do you just focus on their high school experience?
I think a lot of it boils down to what they did at the high school level. Because if you're just talking about, saying who the greatest high school distance runner is, at a particular state or across the globe, you have to go based off what they, I think, accomplished during their prep career. So not discrediting the fact that, some of them went on to become Olympians, national champions and all that, but it boils down to what I think they were able to accomplish throughout their high school career.
And so the first thing I want to do is talk about the girls who did not make the Mount Whitney of Washington, which I think you can talk about that quite a bit because you were having trouble finding the fourth person. So what are some of the athletes that you felt like, oh, almost made it onto the Mount Rainier of high school girls distance runners?
Well, I was going to say, I've never heard of Mount Whitney before, unless I'm from the state of Washington. And I've never heard of
Mount Rainier. Mount Rainier. I apologize.
They're, gosh, I mean, when you sent me the list of names for this, and I looked at it, I'm just like, oh, jeez, I really have to actually dive deep into actually look at, what all these girls were able to accomplish, because I'm just going down the list and I'm like, well, person could be on it. That person could be on it. that person could be on it. So for me, some of the girls that just missed the cut. I'll start off with like Katie Knight. Katie Knight, who of course, really good career at North Central High School in Spokane, state champion, whether it was in cross or in track, national presence as well, just was always consistently there. And I also think of the fact that, her dad was a really good cross country coach when he was, coaching that dynasty that was going on at North Central at the time. Then, of course, she went out to the University of Washington and had a pretty solid career there. So she's one that really missed the cut. And then, one of her future teammates was at the University of Washington was Maddie Myers, which oddly enough, that era, it was like her, Maddie Myers, Alexa Ephraimson, Amy Eloise Neal, like that era alone might have been one of the best eras in Washington State history, just because, they were running fast times, all the races when they would like meet each other, wouldn't necessarily see each other at state meets, but like they would see each other, at like a Shoreline Invitational or an Easton Invitational, and it would just be like some of the best races all season long because that's how good those girls were, and it was just so competitive to watch. So with the case of Maddie Myers, she was so good at the 1A level that it was just kind of unfair to some because she was that far ahead of everybody else. But then it kind of put in perspective. It's like, oh, if she's running these times pretty solo, she's pretty good then. And then you put her up against the like national competition. It's like, oh, now I get a better understanding of like why these times, she can run like a 10:30 solo win by, a minute and a half. And it's like, oh yeah, now I understand why that, she's always been one of the more elite runners in the state. So she's on, someone that missed the cut.
And Maddie
Allie
Myers went to
Janke.
I want to make sure our listeners know, or viewers know, Maddie Myers went to Northwest Schools,
Yep,
and
Northwest School in the greater Seattle area, which my high school is in the same district as that, so I'm very familiar with the Northwest. Also, one of the more unique mascots. Their mascot is the house,
okay,
just the house. That's it. So moving on, Allie Janke's another one. Allie Janke, who was kind of when I was starting the runner wah, she was I want to say she was a sophomore the very first year like really started like covering the entire state. And just watching her was just it was special. It was a treat because she was just so talented, and you knew you were going to get something fast out of her in any race, whether it was a solo effort or against some of the best competition in the country. Like I was so looking forward to her racing against Caitlin Toohey at NXN because I thought, man, Allie Jakey, she's got a chance to compete with Caitlin Toohey. Boy, was I wrong.
now Alan J.
Totally, totally different playing fields, but nonetheless, though, Allie
Well,
Janke,
yeah. Caitlin
really,
too,
really special
very
talent.
special high school athlete. What school did
Yeah,
Allie Janke go to?
North Central. So there's that long line of
Yeah,
athletes in that greater Spokane area
yeah.
that have gone on to do great things that have represented that particular running town. Another athlete that barely missed the cut, Sarah Schwalb, of course. If anybody knows her, she's the mom of another rising star in the Northwest, Ellery Lincoln. She went to Rogers High School in Spokane, was a
Mhm.
really, really good distance runner. Went on to go run at Foot Locker. I think she got third at Foot Locker. I believe it was her senior season. Then of course went on to the University of Arkansas and had a really, really good career as a collegiate athlete. Um, that whole like Spokane running scene
Yeah,
is
that could be an
absurd. And I
episode
know
itself.
we'll talk about it a little bit more, at least especially on the guy side, because it
Yeah.
kind of like it took off from there as well.
Mhm.
Um, but other names that come to mind. I mean, most recently, like Anna Callahan was really good. Julia David Smith was really good. Um, I know I'm missing a handful of names, but I mean the list goes deep, and it's just one of those states that you don't necessarily think about being one of those states that has some of the best athletes, not only in the Northwest but around the entire country.
Well, I will say that I coached in Oregon, and I would occasionally have kids make it to Border Clash, which I think happened from like the late '90s until the late 2010s, and we would just get crushed by Washington, boys and girls, every
Sorry.
every year. And Washington is just super competitive state. And so I could see why it was difficult for you to come to your final four. So let's do it. Who are your final four girls that made Mount Rainier?
So at the top of the list, and most people would think, I could say this one other individual, but I'm going to go with another one. I'll go with Doris Heritage. Um, you have to go way, way back in the day to kind of like get an idea who this individual was. I mean, just, you know, kind of broke through a lot of barriers for, women's distance running back in that era. I want to say it was like the 1960s, early 1970s when she was, kind of in her peak and form shape. She was an Olympic finalist at the 68 games, if I'm correct.
That's correct.
Uh, fifth place. Remind me of the event again. I have to.
I have, yeah, I don't remember that. I'll look it up for you. But she went to
Yeah.
Peninsula High School.
Yes, Peninsula High School, which,
That's a big
as it
tradition,
sounds,
isn't it?
yeah, Peninsula's had some really solid athletes. Most recently, Electra Higgins was one that came out of there just this last year. She made NXN this last year. Hannah Lee was another one that was a very good distance runner. But that whole area, like Gig Harbor, Peninsula, Central Kitsap, like that area, Squim, like there's been a lot of really good athletes that have come out of that particular region in the state of Washington. And I don't think they don't get the appreciation or the credit they deserve for this some of the things they're able to accomplish. But yeah, Doris Heritage. I think I was just looking at some of her stats the other day, just like running 4:39 for a mile in 1970s, like that's a big deal. Like
Yeah.
that was that was a really big deal, especially given the fact that you're running on cinder track. Who knows what those shoes were like? Because they're not carbon plate. They're probably there's probably no cushion at all whatsoever. So, and again, like we're talking about in this day and age of high school athletics, girls running 4:23, 4:27, like that's the standard now. But could you imagine what athletes like Doris Heritage could have benefited from the type of gear or the type of technology that some of these athletes had? So, without a doubt, you got to go with an Olympian as number one on that list.
Yeah, she finished fifth in the 800 in Mexico City, and she briefly owned a 3,000 meter record at one time for just a few months. And so, kind of a pioneer of distance running, not just for Washington, but for women in general. So that's a good pick. Who else do you have?
I think one of the people that thought I would have gone with first would have been Alexei Ephraimson, but as I said, you have an Olympian
Yeah.
at the top of that
Well, they share
board.
they
But
share Mount Rainier. They're all up there.
they yes, they do. And Alexi Ephraimson did a lot for the state of Washington when she was in school. I mean, the first time that I ever, learned about her, I was a freshman in high school. And I had just finally like broke 5 minutes for the very first time. I like ran like 4:58 or something like that. And I'm like, I'm feeling good about myself. And then all of a sudden I'm seeing results from the 4A state meet and I see this young woman run 4:35 and I'm like, oh shoot, I got some work to do. And that young individual was Alexei Ephraimson, and just really during that, as I said, during that era it was her, Amy Louise Neal, Katie Knight, Maddie Myers. Like that was the time that was just like there was just Washington distance running, at least on the girls' side, was at an all-time high because like the amount of sub 5 girls, the amount of girls that were running under 10:30, 10:20 for the 3,200 was just absurd. And on top of that, Alexa Ephraimson was the first ever girl in Arcadia history to run under 10 minutes
Yeah.
for the 3,200. So, that's a huge milestone. And if you were to think, oh, who was the first one to do it? Oh, maybe it was somebody from California. Maybe it was somebody from Texas. Nope, from the upper northwest, from a young lady who went to Camas High School, just right across the border from Portland. So then, of course, she had a really solid pro career and made that decision, turn pro outside of high school. It didn't necessarily, pan out the way she probably had wanted it. She retired earlier probably than she wanted to, but had some world experience, got to race, I think, at some junior meets when she was in high school. Then of course, won NXN, I believe her junior
Right. So
year.
yeah, she didn't run her senior year. She was a professional. So you're putting her on the um, Mount Rushmore, and you have to remember that she only ran 3 years. The
I
other
know.
year she
So
was running
again,
for Nike.
you have to think about the fact that it's like, what could she have accomplished for her senior season had she not turned pro? And
Well, you wonder also,
I
it's
guess
kind of what Sadie Englehart's probably was thinking about last spring and other athletes like that, she in 2016, which I believe was her junior year, maybe it was her senior, I don't know, but she ran 4:03 in the 1500. What other high school girls can do that? That's pretty fast.
Jane
Yeah.
Jane Hedegren could do that.
Yeah, now, but not in 2016, like didn't
No,
anybody
and
compete
you're right.
against.
Here's my thought too, just regards to Alexa, because she did turn pro. If NIL was a thing back then,
Yeah.
would she have stayed in high school?
Yeah, maybe.
Because you can get paid but not turn pro.
Hmm.
So, and I have no idea if money was a factor or not, but maybe the time it was, or maybe she just wanted better competition, and that was just the best opportunity for her at that moment in time.
Well, that NXN victory she had was pretty epic because Sarah Baxter of Simi Valley had won it 2 years in a row, was trying to win it a third year. So she was one of the great high school runners. And then Elise Cranny was in the top three also. There was those three of those gals racing. Of course, we know Elise Cranny's had an outstanding professional career. And so those are some three like pretty amazing high school athletes going at it at NXN. Well,
Mhm,
extremely cold NXN, by the way. Very cold.
mhm.
So
Benefits the Northwest people.
it was windy and cold. The Chinook winds through the gorge there, which she's familiar with because she's from almost the entrance of the gorge at Camas High School. So Alexa Ephraimson is in the, I think if I was to make, obviously she'd make my Washington, then you try to figure out where you go from there. She's really an all-time great. Who are the other two spots go to?
The next one I had was Megan O'Reilly, and partially because talking with my mom, who's from that part of the state in Spokane, like people just kept raving about Megan O'Reilly when she was in high school, and she still has one of the longest standing meet records, state meet records, between all the classifications. I mean, she ran a 10:05 3,200 at a state meet. Like, I mean, we're talking that was 2006 when she ran 10:05, which
Mhm.
I mean, I know a lot more girls are breaking 10 minutes these days, but like 10:05, and I think she did it in a solo effort too. Like, that's not an easy, time to beat, given the fact that also, you don't know what the weather's going to be like in the state of Washington at the big school meet in Mount Tahoma High School, because it could be raining, it could be sideways wind, it could just be the worst weather in the world, and yeah, you could still win the state championship running like 10:30. But there is talent. I think Sophia Rodriguez. I think has probably looked at that time. And it's like, yeah, that's something I want to chase down.
Mhm.
Heck, even Ali Janke couldn't even get that, and Ali Janke's one of the best in the entire state in
Mhm.
history. I think she ran like 10:10 her senior year when she won the 3,200, or maybe it was her junior year. But anyways, but I mean, the fact is like 10:05 is stuck around. Just puts in perspective like how hard it could be, to run a really fast 3,200. One, without competition, and then two, just without great weather, because you never know what you're going to get at
Right.
the Washington State meet.
Yeah, and she finished fourth at Foot Locker. And another athlete from the Spokane area, Mount Spokane. And Mount Spokane was a school that came out of Meade, right? Was that
When Meade was overpopulating, so they needed to build another school. So Mount Spokane, just right down the road from Meade High School. So yeah, big rivals, big
big
time rivals
rivals?
they are.
And then who's our last person on Mount Rainier?
This was a tough one, Ken, because again, I looked at the list and I'm like, she's good, she's good. They're all good. They all make a case to be on that Mount Rushmore. But I went with Amy Eloise Neal. I mean, that was kind of an easy one for me, just because the resume speaks for itself. The amount of state titles, the representation at Nike Cross Nationals. I think it was like three top eight finishes
Yeah.
at NXN throughout her high school career. The amount of track state titles she won, and then not to mention the fact that she just had an amazing career at the University of Washington. Like, just was all Pac-12, all American, both in cross and track. And then even on the global stage, she's been, because she's got dual citizenship, because she runs for Great Britain as well. She's had really good representation running for Great Britain. She was at the Olympics. this last summer for Great Britain. I think she was also at the Olympics in 2021 in Tokyo. I could be
I think that's
mistaken
correct. Yeah.
about that. So yeah, so two-time Olympian, a national champion, and you could argue is one of the more tougher, or not more tougher, I should say, that's bad grammar. Tougher, countries when it comes to distance running. If you look down the list of like athletes that are in like currently running in the UK right now, it's a really tough part of the world
It
to run in
is.
because it's so competitive.
It's not one of those stories where it's like, hey, I'm going to go to another, use my dual citizenship to get to the Olympics easier. Great Britain is they're it's really hard. I mean,
Yeah,
they're so deep.
because you're pulling from athletes from Northern Ireland, Scotland,
Mm.
Wales. It's not just people within the United Kingdom or people within the Great Britain United Kingdom area. It's all those islands, those all
Yeah,
those provinces over there.
and a great tradition too of distance running. And so Amy Eloise Neal ran for Glacier Peak. Glacier Peak had a nice run there too as a team also during
Yep,
her
Glacier Peak,
time.
really, really, really strong program. They always had a presence at the state meet, and even their girls team was really, really good for a long time.
Yeah. So we've got our four gals here: Doris Heritage, Alexa Ephraimson, Megan O'Reilly, Amy Louise Eloise Neal. And now I'm going to ask you. We're going to go to the boys' side, and who are some guys that just almost made it? Who are some of your guys on your list?
I could say the entire squad from the Mead team in the '90s
Yeah,
because those guys were absolute monsters. They were just, I mean, you went on to the starting line with that Mead team, coached by Coach Pat Tyson back in the day. you 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 weren't going to win. You might not even you might not even separate all seven of them because they were just that good. There was a debate about whether or not they had like the greatest high school team of all time compared to like that Newberry Park team during COVID. And some people had that. I think it was like the '93 Mead team. I want to say
yeah, the
that
Davis
one.
boys.
Yeah, that had the Davis boys on it. Uh, versus that 2020 Newberry Park squad with the Youngs and the Solomons. Some had Mead, some had Newberry as number one. But speaking on Mead, Matthew and Micah Davis, maybe the best brother duo in the entire Spokane region, maybe the entire state of Washington for what they were able to do. And Chris Lewis was another athlete from Meade High School that was a really really good athlete. I'm sure there's tons of athletes that I know I'm missing from those Meade squad that were just an unreal era at the time when Pat Tyson was the coach there. But
There was a meet athlete after Pat Tyson that was really competitive. Was Andrew Gardner too?
yes, Andrew was really good. Andrew, um, really, he's a good friend too. I've gotten to know him the last couple of years, especially since when he used his final year of eligibility to go to Gonzaga, run for Coach Tyson, and then become a GA. But now he works in the administration office. I still think he works in the administrative office at Gonzaga. But you know, really good miler, really good overall just runner, really good steepler too. That was one thing when he
Oh,
was at the
guy,
University of Washington. He was a really, really good steepler.
and
So
an
he was
incredible
someone.
athlete. I mean, he was doing some good stuff as a freshman and as a
Mhm.
sophomore. He
Oh
was,
yeah, no, there's so much talent that has come out of that particular school, and even North Central High School, which we're kind of going on to like who else missed the cut? Kai Wilmot. Kai Wilmot
yeah.
was another really, really good distance runner, and had his one little fame, shine, I guess, whatever you want to say, for that NXN title when he beat his teammate Tanner Anderson. But that again, talking about Meade being that dominating program in the '90s, North Central was
Yeah,
something else in those late 2000s, early 2010s. Like they were just so good.
really good. Yeah, I mean, I guess we can talk about because you have. We're going to go to the Mount Rainier of the distance boys. You might. We're going to talk about some Spokane kids. What is it about Spokane? We also talked about Spokane athletes in the girls section too. What is it about Spokane?
Before we go on that, I do want to acknowledge James Moara was another one
Okay,
that
from
that
Tacoma, Lincoln High School.
yep, went to Lincoln High School, oddly enough, the same high school that Pat Tyson went to.
Oh, really?
And
That's
then
cool.
Isaac Yorks from Lakes High School
Yes,
was
yeah, nice.
a very, very good runner and actually ran with, believe he ran with Andrew Gardner during his time at the University of Washington when,
Yeah.
um, oh shoot, I'm blanking his name right now. He coaches at Texas.
Oh, Metcalf.
Yeah, Greg Metcalf,
Right.
also another Washington legend, right out of high school.
Yeah. Right. All right. Yeah, those are excellent runners. And so now we're transitioning to the Mount Rainier athletes. And I guess my question before was we've mentioned some Spokane athletes in the girls. We've mentioned a number of Spokane athletes in the boys. Uh, what is it about Spokane?
It's a great running area. Like if you just go 10 minutes outside the city limits, you will find gravel trails everywhere. You will find the most picturesque trails in the inland Northwest, whether it's, it's at Riverside State Park and you're just running along the Spokane River. I mean, you're just running through the woods and it's just during the fall time, even like, early springtime, there's just something about it that's just nice. It's just special and it's just, it's kind of like that running boom took over because of one individual back in the 60s, and it's the first one on this Mount Rushmore list, and it's the clear and obvious one. It's Jerry Lindgren.
Okay. Jerry Langren from Rogers High School in Spokane.
Without a doubt, probably, and I know there could be a toss-up between some other athletes, is the greatest distance runner to come through the state of Washington. He's on the same level as Steve Prefontaine.
Yeah. And they were
He
rivals
really
too.
is. They were rivals. Of course, when Jerry was at Washington State, Steve was at Oregon. I just remember those two like would just go back at it, back and forth with each other at NCAA championship meets. And I bet you, if Steve was still around during that time, those USA meets would have been just epic, absolutely epic. And perhaps those two could have been together the best duo in U.S. history from when it comes to the longer distance running.
And he also, his senior year, 1964, as a Rogers High School athlete, goes to Tokyo and runs in the 5,000 as a high school kid. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah. Also ran, I believe, 8:48 on a bank track in Madison Square Garden
Wow.
his senior year for an indoor 2 mile. So, just getting put in perspective what a lot of these guys accomplished back in the day. And then of course, what can they what would happen if they had the shoes? What would happen if they had the technology? Could Jerry Lindgren run under 8:30 for a 2 mile? Like who knows?
And then famously, the Tokyo Olympics was the last one that they ran on a dirt track.
Yeah. I do have a funny story about Jerry because I actually had a chance to sit down with Jerry once. I met him. He's currently, well, at least at the time when I met him, he was a janitor at the University of Hawaii, at Manoa, and we sat down for lunch one day, and I just remember him telling me that he would run through Spokane, and back in the day, running was like no one really knew what.
Yeah, it was weird.
I'm not saying no one really knew. Running was just an anomaly. Running was a weird thing back then.
Yeah.
Plus, if you were running from something. That's what he said. Like you were typically running away from something. And so he was just going for a run through Spokane. All of a sudden, he hears this gunshot because he got shot at by one of the cops because the cop thought he was like stealing something.
Oh my gosh.
Because again, you didn't know, like if you assume that, oh, this kid's running from something, well, he must be taking something.
Well, that's funny. It's well, yeah, the 60s, right? I mean, running was not a popular exercise event for people to do. So it was strange.
But yeah, Jerry Lindgren was the pioneer, the trailblazer when it came to distance running in that part of the state.
And then there's another kind of a pioneer during that time period too.
Mhm. Rick Riley. Rick Riley's another one. Went to Ferris High School, went on to go to WSU, and is still living in that region to this day as a coach at St. George's School, which is a very, very small B school, kind of near actually Meade High School. Everything just ties back to Meade High School. It just
Yeah.
seems like that area in particular. It's like, oh yeah, like that. Maybe anything north of Spokane is like the place to be. Maybe there's
Yeah.
something magical in the water or something up there. But Rick Riley, I'm glad to know who he is as a person. The connection I have with him is his son actually ran for my mom when she was a volunteer assistant or an assistant coach at West Valley High School back when she was still living over there and kind of like her post collegiate days. So my mom's known that family for years, and I had the opportunity to meet Rick during COVID and just be able to learn about him, and glad that he's still giving back to the community. But again, just one of those guys that you would always expect on the US senior level to be in the mix when it came to qualifying for the Olympics or a world team, or however it really worked
Now,
back then. But
is he a contemporary of Jerry Lindgren, or is he older or
Rick is a little bit younger, I think,
younger? Okay.
than Jerry. Um, but I just know that Rick was one of those greats, before like Bernard Lagat, that Henry Rono era
Mhm.
during WSU. Like WSU has had really good distance runners past, and Rick was one of those guys. I think he's part of the Washington State Hall of Fame, just because of his presence at the NCAA championship meets. But yeah, no, really good standout runner when he was at Ferris High School, and then that really carried over when he went on to go compete at the next level.
Okay, so we've got two people up. We've got Jerry Lindgren and Rick Riley. Who's else on the Mount Rainier?
Oddly enough, another Spokane guy. I think
Yeah.
Tanner Anderson deserves to be on that mountain as well, and another one I'm blessed to have a relationship with, and he's a great guy. He's actually an assistant coach now at the University of Missouri, which that's going to be a pretty big fall for them because they're hosting the NCAA
Right.
championships at Gans Creek this year. So I'm excited for them and their entire program. But when Tanner was in high school, gosh, he was good. He was really good. As I mentioned, that girls side, which that era was like Alexa Ephraimson, Maddie Myers. During that time period was also another really good era of runners. And oh, by the way, it was all in Spokane too,
Mhm.
because not only did you have Tanner Anderson and Kai Wilmot, you had Johnny Dressel from Mount Spokane. You had Nathan Whites from Shadle Park. I mean, the list goes on of athletes over in that Spokane region, which again, that era was just skyrocketed. Especially, you had Tanner winning an NXN title, Kai Wilmot winning an NXN title, John Dreschel having his presence at Foot Locker. Same with Nathan Whites.
Yeah, John Dressel finished second in 2013 to a guy named Grant Fisher. I don't know if you've heard of him before.
It's a pretty good guy to be finishing right behind.
Yeah, that's incredible. It's the same time, 2013, 2014. It's the same like time period. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, it was that was a very exciting time for the state of Washington, and believe it or not, it got better after those years. It
Yeah.
got it got way better after
I,
those
I
years.
I remember like Henry Jackson High School, or maybe it was Tahoma or some school on the west side was trying to break the streak of, maybe was it 3A or 4A? I don't know what. I just remember reading about how Spokane had a stranglehold. Not
Well,
just
I think you're
Spokane, but
thinking of
also
I think
Eisenhower. It was like
I think it was Gig Harbor, because Gig
Gig
Harbor won
Harbor, yeah, when they went
NXN.
NXN. That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because Gig Harbor had one of the Pelican brothers. That was a really good team. That went on to win, I think it was 2013 they won
The same
NXN,
year
and kind
that
of
same year Alexa won.
yeah, same. I think they kind of like stopped the streak of like North Central winning all these consecutive state titles. I mean, that was at least that I can think of. But yeah, I think there was a streak where like North Central won like 10 in a row,
Yeah.
3A state titles or something like that.
And
Kind
I
of
think
like with the
Eisenhower
Meade
might have
squad.
snuck in a few too. It was like an Eastern Washington versus the Western Washington. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean yeah, Eisenhower had a really good team back in the day. Yeah, no, there was that period like 2013, 2014, 2015 was just like, geez, like you always expected somebody from the state of Washington to have some sort of presence at the national scene.
And that's why they might have they might have been the reason why the border clash between Oregon and Washington just didn't succeed, because it wasn't close. It wasn't
Well, and
very
that's
fair.
not to discredit, like Oregon has its athletes too. I mean, let's not just
No,
like Galen Rupp. I mean, come on.
yeah, they had some good athletes, just not the depth that Washington has at that time.
Yes.
So Tanner Anderson's up there, and now we have a drum roll. Okay, Keenan. So we've been talking a lot about Spokane. The three of the four athletes on the Mt Rainier are Tanner Anderson of North Central, Jerry Lindgren of Rogers High School, and Rick Riley of Ferris High School, all from the Spokane area. So that logically means the fourth person is from Spokane.
No, no, it's not. I mean, as much as we like to talk about Spokane this entire time, we have to address the fact that a barrier was finally broken for the very first time in the state of Washington by a prep athlete, and that was the 4 minute mile, and that was none other than Owen Powell from Mercer Island High School. I mean, there's not much more you can say about a guy that, as I said, broke a barrier. Not only broke a barrier, shattered that barrier too. I mean, just went well underneath. Ran like 3:56, I want to say.
Yeah, 3:56. What was the old record, like 4:02 or?
I think the old record was held by Jerry, and it might have been four flat. It might have been like four flat 4:01
Uh-huh.
when he ran that. But as far as I know, no one had ever broken 4 minutes in the mile until Owen did that at the Dempsey indoor facility when he ran 3:57. And then the following week, of course, because it was on an oversized track, so people are not going to count that for indoor records. But when he went and ran 3:56 in Boston, that was number 2 all time, just right behind Hobbs Kessler.
That's amazing. So Owen Powell is on the Mount Rushmore also. Not only a great mile time, but he finished right behind in the 800 at Brooks PR is Justin Lutenhouse, who just made the U.S. team, right?
Yep, Cooper was just a couple tenths ahead of him in that 800 at Brooks, which
And
also
that's
led Owen to running a state record as well, which Owen already had anyways, because he ran, I believe, 1:48 the year before at I think it was Portland Track Fest. But yeah, Owen Powell was just a couple tenths of a second behind a world championship qualifier, which I'll be honest, after watching that race at the Brooks PR, I thought Owen was going to beat Cooper. I thought that was Cooper's worst race of the year in the 800.
hmm. But he
And
broke didn't he break the high school record in that day too?
broke the high school record. Owen was really close to Granville's time as well, but was also no, it was only Cooper Luchtenhaus, and heck, no high score is ever going to be running 1:42. Everyone can record my statement now. Like I do not see a 16, 17, 18-year-old running 1:42 in the next 50 years or so. Maybe there might be.
Yeah.
I might be mistaken, but mark my words that's a record that's going to stand for a very, very long time.
And then Owen won the Arcadia meet at 8:38 or 8:39. I mean, he had some pretty good range.
Yeah, and on top of that, he closed in his last lap in like 54 seconds
Right.
because they went out about, I want to say they went at like 4:33 for that first mile, and he ended up running, I think, 8:38.
Right.
So do the math in your head. He closed in like 4:06 for
It's
that last
incredible.
1,600 meters.
He did something similar at the Washington State meet where he ran 4:03, I think, and set the state meet record. But he came by at a really pedestrian time in the 800, had to run like a 150 something to do that.
I think, yeah, if I'm mistaken, because I talked to him about it, I think he told me he went through like 2:12
You think so?
for the
Yeah.
first 800, and then he closed in like 1:52, maybe 1:51,
It's
and then
crazy.
ran that a crazy time, and almost. But like it's just the way that he does those things, like the way he's able to, like, turn on just a different type of gear, going from slow to just in a crazy fast time. I mean, 1:51 is really, really good for just an 800 solo effort, but to do that after you could say, "Oh, I tempoed or I jog a 2:12," that's just unheard of. Just
A lot of
unheard of.
schools would be very happy with a 4:06, 1600 school record and a 151 or 152 school record. Those are excellent high school school records, and he did
Well,
it in the second half of his
if
races.
you're typically running a 406 for a 1600, you're not going out 212.
Yeah,
You're going
right.
out like 202, 201.
Yeah, right. That's incredible. So, uh, Owen Powell makes the Mount Rainier, and I'm going to cast our Mount Rainier people. On the girls' side, we have Doris Heritage, pioneer of running, Alexa Ephraimson of Camas. By the way, Doris Heritage is from Peninsula. Alexa Ephraimson from Camas, Megan O'Reilly from Mount Spokane, Amy Eloise Neal from Glacier Peak. And then the boys, we have a bunch of Spokane athletes. Tanner Anderson from North Central, Jerry Lindgren from Rogers High School in Spokane, Rick Riley and Ferris in Spokane. But then we go on the west side to Mercer Island, and Owen Powell, the class of 2025, a recent graduate who just chiseled his face on Mount Rainier.
I'm sure I'm missing a few names, and I'm sure someone out there can make a strong case for those arguments. I'm sure there's somebody during that Jerry Lindgren era that was also as good as a lot of these athletes that either missed the cut or made this top four list. But it's fun to go back and just look at what some of these guys are accomplished. And heck, even like, I mean, I knew what Jerry, Rick, and Tanner and Owen were all able to accomplish. A lot more. I knew a lot of the boys were able to accomplish. But like, going into this, like, it was cool to learn a little bit more about Doris Heritage. It was cool to learn about what that era was like in 2013, 2014 during that time, because it was just, whether it was on the boys or girls side, it was just like there were so many talented athletes that went on to run at the collegiate level, went on to the pro level,
Mhm.
or had some sort of presence at the national Nike Cross Nationals or NON or New Balance stage. Like, it's always fun to go back and look at that type of stuff, which is why, like, someone like you and I, we like what we do. We're huge nerds of this sport, and so going back and digging through some history is always a fun time.
Yeah, it was really fun. I researched a little bit of this to see all these amazing names. When my first year coaching, I, I got with this thing called Harrier Magazine. That was a big deal. And they were going on and on about Andrew Maris of White River, who was battling Brian Dameworth, who was the superstar from my area. Brian Dameworth, I'm from Ventura County. And so there's all these names are just, they're just out there doing amazing. I mean, Washington athletes have had a long history of being just outstanding athletes. And I know that for a fact, being here in the state of Oregon. Portland's right across the river from Washington. We see athletes come
Yep.
down here for meets, and we go up there, and so and then we the border clash. So nothing but respect for Washington athletes.
Well,
I used
they've
to take
also
my team up to Seattle. Yeah, we had a bit of a problem here in at a low high school. We had trouble. We were in a very tough league, and I thought if I took them to Seattle the first meet of the year, because they wouldn't know who these kids were. And it's before the internet, right? The kids would watch the Washington kids warm up, and they realized they were in trouble.
and a lot of those athletes that were in the state of Washington went on to become some really good coaches as
Yes,
well.
yes,
As I mentioned, Pat Tyson, really good high school and collegiate cross country coach, track coach. Another one that kind of catches people by surprise that they didn't know he was actually from the state of Washington was Dave Smith of Oklahoma State.
Dave Smith is from not far from a school that Rob Connor at the University of Portland. They're from like the same area.
Uh, Dave Smith went to Tumwater High School, which is in that kind of Olympia
Yeah,
area.
and I
So
think
yeah,
Rob Connor's from that area too, from the University of Portland.
yeah, Rob Connors, of course, everyone knows him at the University of Portland. Just so many WCC titles. There's a laundry list
Yeah,
of them on both the. At least, I mean, I know the women, both programs are separate, but like I know for a fact that both the men's and women's programs in Portland are so good in the WCC for a long time. And then, Greg Metcalf, as I said, afraid of high school, was at the University of Washington. Now is at the University of Texas down there in weird to say SEC country, not Big
yeah,
12 country anymore. But yeah, no, a lot of big names have come out
yeah.
of the Evergreen State.
Well, I sure appreciate you coming on and giving your expertise, and we look forward to all the kind of cross country previews as we get going for cross country season on DyeStat. You can watch those. Keep an eye on DyeStat's posts on their website, on their Instagram accounts, Twitter X account, and working on some. You're getting ready for some team rankings and individual rankings coming up here.
Yep, and one of us is going to be in Tokyo actually. So the track season is not over yet. So our editor Doug Binder is going to be in Tokyo for the World Championship. So he'll have all of the coverage right there, boots on the ground in Japan. So we're looking forward to see what he brings us to the table. And yeah, we're gonna get ready for this cross country season, which is gonna be another, busy one. Always is, always will be. Excited for the high school scene to get going. A lot of new names we'll be able to learn about probably this fall season, especially when those rankings come out. And then, of course, the collegiate setting is always a one that's like, all right, who's gonna be the next man up? Who's gonna be
Right.
the next woman up? It'll be a fun year. So I'm excited for cross to get going here.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Keenan, and have a great rest of your summer. And we'll look forward to seeing all the action on DyeStat.
Appreciate it, Ken.
Well, we want to thank Keenan Gray of DyeStat for coming on for our episode on the Mt Rainier of Washington athletes. That was super interesting. I think the part that was fascinating to me was the Spokane angle on why is it that Spokane is what they call the Rift Valley of distance running. And talked a little bit about Pat Tyson, who grew up in Tacoma, went to University of Oregon, was Steve Prefontaine's teammate at Oregon, then comes back to Washington and has a great career at Meade High School and then later at Gonzaga. And, if we were to do the Mount Rushmore of coaches, high school cross-country coaches, Pat Tyson probably will get a spot on that great mountain too. So I really appreciate Keenan coming in and talking about all those athletes. Obviously, you have an opinion too. So if you want to make your comment known on our comments on our Instagram account or here on our YouTube page, that would be fantastic. Did we forget somebody? It's easy to do. So thanks a lot for listening or watching again. And we will have another episode coming soon for the state of Oregon. So hang in there, our Oregonians. Until next time, remember that the West Coast is the best coast.